Today, we've had a national tragedy. 2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center.
And I want you to let them know that if there is any terrorism, we know who to blame. If any terrorism comes, it's from this government.
And more stuff is coming out now also, how much the Bush administration ignored the intelligence. It was almost like they ignored it because they wanted it to happen.
MKULTRA Orphans.
Well, hello. Welcome back to MKULTRA Orphans. Today, we have a very special episode all about, a little late to the game, but all about 9/11 and how it is a mega ritual organized by global elites to keep us in a forever war. All the research we did is from a book called The Most Dangerous Book in the World, 9/11 as a Mega Ritual by S.K. Bain. It's real cool, really funny. What did you think of it, Eric?
It was better than I thought it would be, for sure. I think that I was expecting it to be a lot of like biblical references and revelations and prophetic things, but it really wasn't. So I was impressed with that it was all about like just putting pieces together that tied to the occult more than it is like just biblical satanic shit. Yeah,
it's like it's a great primer for people if you don't know anything about the occult, which is really cool. I haven't done any research into the occult in a long time, so it was fun to read. But instead of just going through everything that's in the book, because there were lots of areas that I was like, I don't want to discuss that. We've kind of taken some of the research from the book, done our own research, and want to mostly talk about kind of like the symbology of 9/11 and what does it mean within the American psyche. But we will be going through some of the interesting elements of the book because a large portion of the book is about Aleister Crowley, who is possibly my favorite countercultural icon, an actual madman. He got butt fucked in the desert to invoke a demon. Super cool guy. Really awesome. Before we dive into the bigger part of this project, I want to go over like some glossary terms for anybody that doesn't know like who Aleister Crowley is. So yeah, for those of you dorks who don't know who Aleister Crowley is, you might know who he is and not even realize it because he's so ingrained in so many elements of pop culture. He was an occultist, a ceremonial magician, and a Renaissance man alive during the early 1900s. He's the creator of Thelma, a spiritual philosophy he lived his life by. At the core of Thelma is one quote, "Do what thou will is the whole of the law." He kind of lived his life by this. He was a complete hedonist, used people for his own gains, kind of psychopathic, but still pretty interesting. I know I'm not painting the best picture, but it's just true.
He's awesome, though.
He is awesome.
Just trust us.
He died in Italy of syphilis alone, which I think if you get to that point in your life, especially the being alone part, you've at least accomplished something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he wrote a lot of books, too, in his time for different rituals and practices and things like that. But he was like the main guy, I feel like, who kind of brought a lot of this back into the thing.
When it comes to like the Western magical tradition, Crowley is the guy.
Yeah. He's on Sgt. Pepper's cover, or whatever the hell the full name of that is. But by the Beatles, of course, he's in the background. There's been several, tons and tons. Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin, I think, bought some kind of house that was affiliated with him. I would have to check that to be certain. But yeah, I mean, Led Zeppelin 2 was very much into the Crowley stuff.
Apparently, like odd little side story, David Bowie and the guitarist for Led Zeppelin like did like a magic war against each other.
I've heard that. Yeah,
which is, man, I really want a fictional movie of like two egotistical, narcissistic rock stars that use like dark magic to fuck each other's lives up. That'd be an awesome movie. So yeah, Western magic in principle was kind of ushered forward by Crowley. He was involved in all the big Western magical movements like Order of the Golden Dawn, but ultimately went and did his own thing, which has resulted in him being in every aspect in some way, even unknown to people within pop culture and like the kind of public consciousness. And a lot of the book that we did the research for this episode involves Crowley throughout the whole book. The book is kind of predicated on all these things that happened during 9/11 and before match parts of Crowley's teachings. Crowley called himself the most evil man in the world. He really kind of wanted to live and embody, I'll do whatever I want for my own pleasure, because that's the only thing in the world that matters. I'm going to keep referencing that because it's important for the rest of the episode. So we know who Crowley is, a really important magician. You've heard about him somewhere, even with what's the Ozzy Osbourne song, Mr. Crowley. Yeah. That was
my introduction to him when I was a kid. Yeah,
I remember hearing that on EBN and asking my dad who he was.
Yeah,
and my dad
same way. Yeah.
So we have down who Crowley is. So let's just talk a tiny bit about magic. Let's talk a little bit about magic. What is a ritual? So here's like the actual like definition from Google. A religious or solemn ceremony consisting of a series of actions performed according to a prescribed order. One thing I marked in my notes is that anything can be a ritual. When we think of rituals, I always think of the Catholic Mass. It has.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah,
Yep.
It has a set order of actions that are taken
To invoke a deity.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah,
It's
that's
the
same
oldest
deal.
occult order to exist is the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
But anything can. I know that when you wake up in the morning and you start to brew your coffee and the coffee's done, so think of like the kind of chemical action that just took place of pouring warm water over coffee grounds to create a new substance, and you go outside to smoke your morning cigarette where you're burning an item, extracting the nicotine, the tar and whatever into your body, breathing it out. The caffeine and the nicotine are going to kind of merge together to create one synthesis of a chemical reaction. That in itself is a ritual. You do it every single morning. It's the only thing that'll get you up and going. Going to a movie is also like a weird form of ritual, because you go to an auditorium, you're there with a congregation of people, just like you're devoting your time, focusing all your energy on one artistic vision. Going to a concert's the same way. You're there with a ton of people. You're all focused on one thing. These are all ritual. So now that we got that out of the way, before we dive into the kind of ritualistic intent behind 9/11 by the global elite, let's quickly go through the series of events on 9/11. And I thought before we did that, where were you at on 9/11, Eric?
I was in 5th grade, and our school and teachers, they did not tell us. We thought it was a little weird because the teachers were, of course, like crying and acting very strange.
Like they didn't have it on TV at all? Like in the classroom?
No, so we didn't have TVs in classrooms. They were watching them in the office and like running back and forth. I don't remember if they let us out of school early. I think they may have. And I just remember coming home and my mom was home, which was bizarre because she usually worked till later in the evening. And she was just on the couch crying and we had no clue. And that's when she told us. So
yeah, we watched it in class.
Damn.
And as a little kid, you don't really understand the like importance of something like that happening.
Dude, it sounds so stupid, but like I played football at the time. And for like 1 or 2 years when I was younger, and I fucking hated it. But anyways, but they canceled football practice. And I was like, my mind was blown. I didn't understand. I was like, well, that's New York. I didn't even like think of that as America. You know, like it was just such a weird thing.
It's hard as a kid to register an event like that.
Yeah,
because I know
you
that
can't.
when it happened, we were all in the classroom. It was on TV. My math teacher is like visibly distraught, not crying, but kind of like oh my God. And she didn't know how to explain to a bunch of sixth graders the importance of it. I remember I was sitting next to Vinny and Vince Burgess.
Yeah.
And Vince Burgess making jokes that it was the Russians, which even then as a kid, I'm like, why would the Russians care about it? Like I don't understand any of this. And then, getting off school early, going home and being upset that I went to turn on the radio and there was no music playing because it's just them talking about
everything.
Even on WEBN, there was like no music. It was just like beat by beat what was happening, what we're figuring out. What a weird event. And nobody, if you were alive during that time, like you remember distinctly where you were at.
Oh yeah, it's forever ingrained. If you're in our age, I don't know how Gen Z feels. Obviously they remember it, but it's worse than us. I'm sure.
I've talked to my little brother about it, and he was, I'm pretty sure he was born in 2001, maybe. No, he wasn't. He was born a few years after. But when I've asked him, like, what does he think about that event? Like, does he have any thoughts?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, clearly, even if you were born a year or two after, I mean, we celebrate it every year. And not celebrate it. Remember it every single year. Way more than in any other event. Mm-hmm. I mean, think about, like, if you went on the street and asked somebody, when did Pearl Harbor happen?
Yeah.
Most likely, they're not going to know the date. They're going to know what the event was.
Right.
So any, like, American tragedy, especially some sort of military tragedy, people just like, we've instilled 9/11. You will always remember, you're never going to forget that date. Mm-hmm. Like it's not just like the day. It's not just like the World Trade Center event or whatever. It's
according to this book, there's specific reasons why it was 9/11. Obviously, besides like 911 or like emergency that everybody said, there's a lot that ties into it.
Yeah, this is you guys. There's a lot to do with numbers, but it's not math, so don't worry.
Yeah,
if it was math, I think we just would have scrapped the episode.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so let's get into the series of events that happened that day. Okay, so at 7:59 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 takes off from Boston Logan International Airport, bound for Los Angeles International Airport. At 8:14, Flight 11 is hijacked. At the same time, United Airlines Flight 175 takes off from Boston Logan, also bound for Los Angeles. At 8:20, American Airlines Flight 77 takes off from Washington Dallas International Airport, also bound for Los Angeles. At 8:42 a.m., United Airlines Flight 93 takes off from Newark International Airport, bound for San Francisco International Airport. At 8:42, Flight 175 is hijacked. At 8:46, Flight 11 crashes into the North Tower of the World Trade Center between the 93rd and 99th floors. At 8:50, Flight 77 is hijacked. At 9:03, Flight 175 crashes into the South Tower of the World Trade Center between the 77th and 85th floors. 9:28, Flight 93 is hijacked. At 9:37, Flight 77 crashes into the Pentagon. At 9:59, the South Tower collapses. At 10:03, Flight 93 crashes into a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. At 10:28, the North Tower collapses. It was easy as that, baby. It happened that quick. I think by the time we saw it on TV, I remember both towers being on fire.
Yeah.
I don't remember actively seeing like a plane hit.
I don't know if the plane hitting, I know the first plane hitting wasn't even seen for a while because it was only filmed by that documentary crew that was at the fire department.
Yeah.
So that one wasn't even like immediately released from what I understand. It was only the second one that was the main one. But I have seen a few lately of on TikTok around when 9/11's anniversary, but of people with home videos in their apartment watching it and seeing.
There's one that's really interesting where it's like an apartment that's pretty far away.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if they're in New Jersey and you can see the city or whatever, but that one, because there's like a bunch of people outside and you see the plane hit and they all start screaming.
Yeah.
Dude.
It's eerie. But yeah, so like I was saying before about the numbers, That's an important element for all of this throughout the book. So 9, to Crowley, 9 was an evil number. To Jung, 9 was a magically divine number. In Crowley's gematria, he claims that 9 is a number of evil, but not only evil, 9 is associated with many secret societies and is a number of change as well as the end of a cycle. A woman bears a child after 9 months. Jung said 9 was spiritually divine. 11 is the number of magic itself, and thus 9 equals evil and divine, and 11 is magic. So and it was
evil magic.
Yes, the invocation to propel us into this endless war that we're still involved in. So
yeah, so we now know that 9/11, for viewing this from an element of it being like a ritual. When you're doing a ritual, everything kind of needs to have intent. So I'll briefly describe there's a form of magic called chaos magic. It's kind of considered the punk rock of magical systems. And within chaos magic, when I was doing reading on it a long time ago, when you're doing a spell, you can kind of do like the whole like an eye of newt and the claw of a griffin or whatever. That's clearly played up in media and purposely goofy. But with magic, you can kind of do whatever you want as long as what you're doing is imbued with some sort of intent or has meaning. Mm-hmm. So in this case, if we are to believe that the global elites are doing this for some nefarious satanic reason, that 9/11 was purposely chosen based on this. But it only kind of, that's like the tip of the iceberg. Let's just keep going down. Let's look at the numbers of the flights. So we have flight 11, another reference to magic. We have flight 175. 175, well, this is like one of the more interesting parts of the book, because I know a lot about Crowley, but I kept forgetting about this. So we have flight 175. Crowley has a fundamental book or piece of text called Liber 175, wherein he gives instructions for invoking a deity through ritualistic magic. So a quote from the book. This is the book of uniting oneself to a particular deity by devotion concerning the ceremonies. Prepare a powerful invocation for a particular deity. Let it be known that this method is adaptable to the necessities of all. Let him take anything soever and consecrate it. Let him consecrate each thing that he useth to the service of that particular deity. So this is a ceremonial invocation. The act of invoking or calling upon the deity is spirit, whatever, for aid, protection, inspiration, or the like. So that's flight 175. Aiming for a particular deity. And then flight 11, flight 11 is reference to magic, so magically invoking a particular deity. I think we can all guess who the deity is. The big dog himself. And then I always forgot, until reading the book, I always forget about the Pentagon.
Yeah.
That's not something that goes through my head.
Yeah, I don't know. I always forget about it because I don't know if a plane was ever really there. But that's a whole nother story.
That's like the theory.
Yeah, it's a little, and it crashed into like the finance department, and they lost a few $1 trillion or something.
Yeah, when I read that in the book, where Donald Rumsfeld, what a fucking weirdo. Just him being like, yeah, we've just lost like a couple billion or $1 million. Like, whoopsie.
Yeah,
oops,
whatever.
Guys, sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry. A plane supposedly crashed into this with no video evidence and not much evidence of a plane. But,
Yeah, a little suspicious.
Yeah.
We also have Flight 77. And what does 77 reference within, Crowley's kind of magical systems? Well, before we dive into 77, what did it hit? It hit the Pentagon, a 5-sided building that, if you look at it from above, kind of looks like a pentagram. Well, what's Crowley known for? He's the most evil man in the world. He takes magical systems and flips them on their head to be nefarious. So the whole inverted pentagram that we know and love from Hot Topic, from the cool goth kids wearing their inverted pentagram necklaces, or I don't know what bands have used that iconography, but he invented that because the pentagram has always been kind of used by different magicians or like magical groups of people, being that it references like the 5 elements of earth, and it's the uniting of one's material world to the spiritual world. But because Crowley was hedonistic, he was like, no, fuck that. This is all about my pleasure. It's my body's pleasure over my spiritual being. Invert that bitch, boom. So we have Flight 77 crashing in to something that represents an inverted pentagram. So this is an area that I kind of had to do some of my own research on, because the book references that 77 is used by the Freemasons. We all know that the Freemasons are commonly referenced within occult systems, the Illuminati, you know, they're the architects of, I don't know, the world or something.
Yeah,
weird,
they run it all, and lizard people. And...
all that shit. But it references in the book that 77 is used by them, and it says something like it's used by the Freemasons as a Freemasonry rite for the revenge of Lamech. And I'm like, what the fuck is revenge of Lamech or Lamech? Mm-hmm. So then I had to just Googled it, and it's a story from the Old Testament where Lamech, I know I'm pronouncing it wrong, whatever. You guys won't know either. He was a descendant of Cain. And we all know that Cain killed his brother because he was like mad jealous of him. Lamech boasted to his wives about killing a man in a poem to them. So Lamech said to his wives, Ada and Zillah, listen to me, wives of Lamech, hear my words. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for injuring me. If Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times.
Avenged sevenfold.
Hell yeah, dude. that did not click on my head, but it all makes sense now.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. If that's what it's from. I don't know.
I'm sure that's where they got it. So what Lamech is basically saying is like, I went and did a bunch of, I looked up that quote, and it took me to a website that was like interpreting the Bible. and literally it's just like, he's like telling his wife, like, yeah, I killed somebody. What about it? Yeah. Like, what are you going to do? Like, do what thou will. It's the whole of the law, bitch. Yeah. So I thought that was really interesting that it ties back to this central message that we have to put, that we are structuring all of this towards. Like, do what you will, fuck the haters. But, you know, when it's the government doing it, it's not that cool. It's really bad. 77 isn't only used by Freemasons. Crowley himself has, once again, a piece of fundamental text called Liber Oz, or Book 77. It's a single page purporting the central focus of his Thelma philosophy, which is do what thou will, is the whole of the law. So, a plane, Flight 77, hits a 5-sided building that represents an inverted pentagram. 5 within occult properties and systems means evil. So you have, like, in the book it said 5 times 5 times 5, so it's like the highest evil, or highest death. It was the number 5 represents death. The Lamech, I kind of feel like if I would have done a bit more research, there probably would have, you know how there's a confirmation bias, like you're doing research and you're like, oh man, that like totally goes back to this thing. There was a few things I left out related to Crowley, just like weird quotes from like his some of his books, where I'd start looking up numbers like 11, 175, 77, 93, all that, and would find quotes that kind of fit, but then I had to kind of keep reminding myself, like, no, you want it to fit.
Yeah,
you know, because then it just makes it more interesting, but most likely it's just coincidental. He has so many books. Yeah. If you go to the 93rd page, the 93rd word on the 77th page, on the 175th chapter, you're going to find something, you know, especially with occult writings, because it's all so like verbose and weird, and unless you understand the systems at play, you could interpret it however you want. Hey there, this is Holland coming to you from the future. So I forgot to cap off this section with kind of like the conclusion of it, which is if we're talking about Book 77, which is saying, do what thou will, and how 77 relates back to Lamech and the story of Lamech, which is that he was like, yeah, I killed people, what are you going to do about it? If all of this is related around 77 and the Pentagon, and the government supposedly did it, is responsible, it's kind of like the government saying for the satanic ritual, yeah, we did it, what are you going to do about it? There you go, back to the show. Oh yeah, so the pentagram, here's a quote from the book. If the Pentagon is a pentagram, it expresses the mind's domination over the elements, and it is by this sign that we bind the demons of the air, the spirits of the fire, the specters of water, and the ghosts of earth. That's pretty metal. That quote I just read is from, I think his name's Levi. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but essentially Crowley's first, let's just call it his first band, Order of the Golden Dawn, followed the teachings of Levi, who was a very famous occultist. A lot of the kind of images that you see were invented by him as a jab to the former group. When Crowley went to do his own thing, that's when he starts inverting some of these elements, some of these like ideas. So like Levi was famous for that, I guess, for that quote about the pentagram. So the next section I have, I don't know if you want to start this off, because it's all about a certain image that we all know and love.
Daddy Baphomet.
Yes.
It's obviously come up into pulp culture a lot. Sabrina the Teenage Witch on Netflix. I know that
They did
show,
use that, right?
Yeah,
I put that in the notes and I was like, oh, I'm not.
but they
lie.
used the TST's copyrighted one, so they had this like whole rebuttal back and forth, and they had to pull it because they used the actual bronze statue that they have or trademarked or copyrighted, whatever the hell it is. Yeah, because that's technically theirs.
That's pretty cool. Okay.
Yeah, so it's protected. But anyways, little tidbit. But yeah, it has become this thing. We actually talked about it maybe 1 or 2 episodes ago about the Airbnb with the Baphomet statue and the guy getting pissed. But it's just a symbol for everything that Christians hate.
Yeah.
Essentially, I mean that's what it is. It's meant.
They can place, because it looks, quote, satanic,
Yeah.
they can place anything they want on it. I remember a long time ago, what's his name? The guy that runs the Blaze. Why am I blanking on his name? You know what I'm talking about, right?
I know who.
I'm going to
yeah,
think of his name after this. I'll also have to edit it in. Something came up with that statue, like when they first built it, and he, of course, is freaking out because he's a hyper Christian conservative, but he kept calling it Satan, and that was just so funny to me because it's like, oh, anything that's a goat-headed person is Satan.
Yes,
you know,
of course.
Because when you look at the meaning of Baphomet, there's nothing satanic about it.
It has nothing to do with it, and I've heard people try to tell me that it's Satan like possessing the children that are standing next to him, and like all of this crazy stuff, or it promotes like transgenderism because it has breasts and like both parts, but like it's just so fucking
It's like,
stupid.
no, dog, it's the duality of man.
Yeah, it
is both genders. It is the fundamental all being. You know,
Yeah.
it's pointing up, it's pointing down. It has the phallic like image of what doctors use, the doctor symbol. I forgot, the Hermes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll go and read a little definition here. So the guy that created Baphomet was Levi, who Crowley's first band used his teachings to kind of build their own kind of group of people. And Levi called it the Goat of Mendes, or Baphomet. It was a goat-headed deity being formed of both male and female principles, with Mercury's caduceus, I guess that's how you pronounce it, for its phallus. One arm points up and one down, with Latin solution and coagulation written on them. This is not the Christian devil, but a symbol of the ancient alchemists, representing the fact that nature that nature and nature's God is a combination and balance of male and female forces, light and darkness, moisture and dryness. The very principle of Hermes, as above so below, is symbolized by Baphomet. It's literally just a cooler version of the yin and yang.
Yeah, basically, yeah. It's both. It's the embodiment of all mankind, humankind. That's what it is, and it's obviously been adapted by New Age things. But invoking the response from Christians is amazing. When they did their showing in like Detroit and all the different cities when they unveil the statue of him. Oh God, they lose their fucking minds.
Oh yeah,
and
which is funny because if you were to, without telling them what the image was, if you were to be like, oh yeah, there's an ancient symbol known in medieval times that represents both male and female. It's this all-encompassing the night and the day, moisture and dryness. I thought it was kind of funny that they mentioned that in that definition. If you were to tell somebody that, they'd be like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
because there's nothing evil about it.
Well, and they also are the ones that carry around a fucking crucified man around their neck their entire lives.
Yeah, that's totally not morbid.
Yeah, that's not morbid at all. That's totally fine. But so of course this ties into my personal favorite part of the Megaritual, which is the reading of My Pet Goat with George W. Bush in Florida.
I totally never knew about this till
Really?
I knew that he was in a classroom.
Yeah.
But I didn't know, I was like, dude, I bet I can't imagine what it was like being a conspiracy theorist, specifically like a Christian conspiracy theorist, when this shit happened. Because I should have started Googling My Pet Goat, Bush, Megaritual, whatever, and just ordered the Google search by like date. To find because I guarantee there's some like GeoCities websites where they're freaking out.
Angel Fire. But yeah, so of course he was known to be in Florida, which is another part of the ritual, his geographical location. But reading the book was what initiated the planes to hit, and that's when he was warned. Shortly after the first one had struck. So from the book, this is a little quote about how it ties into the ritual. In the class's reading of the pet goat, the direct instruction method was utilized. The teacher pounded out the syllables with a pen on her book and read in unison with the children, the overall effect being not unlike a ritualistic chanting at a religious ceremony.
Get ready to read this word the fast way. Get ready. Kid. Yes. Sound it out. Get ready. Kid. Sound it out. Get ready. Kid. What word? Kid. Yes, kid. Boys and girls, sound this word.
Because it's that weird method of teaching where they like tap and then all the kids yell out the word. And then it's really weird, but
it's a literal, like, in reference to it being a mega ritual, it is the choir.
Yeah, that's exactly
ushering in the next phase of the ritual.
Mm-hmm. So there sits Bush as a satanic high priest in Devil's Paradise, listening to the little black children. Yes, skin color does matter to a cultist. What, you thought they were politically correct?
That's one of my. That's why I think the book's awesome. If you're gonna read a piece of weird conspiracy literature, get this book because it's really funny. It knows what it's doing. It doesn't take itself too seriously.
Mm-hmm. Chant out a humorous story about a pet goat, which is actually a thinly veiled simplification of the Luciferian doctrine. While people burn to death in the North Tower, UA-175 slams into the South Tower in New York City. Crowley's Liber 175, the book of uniting to a particular deity by devotion, outlines precisely what the perpetrators are seeking to accomplish at the exact moment through their sadistic, homicidal, ritualistic acts, unite themselves with Satan. And although locations for these two events are separated by hundreds of miles, the two acts are bound together by an ingenious and sophisticated manner by a cohesive ritual unity.
Boom. It's as easy as that.
Yeah. Also, I wanted to point out, while we were on Crowley and the numbers a little bit ago, there was an air traffic controller at one of the airports in, I think it was in Canada, but the name of the airport was in reference to Mr. Crowley by Ozzy. there's a quote in there that like tied into the name of the airport, and then one of the air traffic controller's last name was Crowley. That's how they invoke Crowley to help in the ritual as well.
Okay.
So he was a key person in place in tying it all before the goat story. But
yeah. And then the other stuff I didn't really put in our notes was when Bush is in Florida reading to the little children, the two guys, the hijackers, they trained in Florida, right?
Yes,
like
they did.
So they trained to fly planes and were notoriously bad
Yep.
at flying planes in Florida. Wasn't the CIA headquarters?
the CIA got busted doing a lot of like drug running at a nearby place. To that, and also, of course, Jeb was the governor of Florida, Bush's brother, which he was tied into all of it as well.
So you have like these global elites, all these things. What we're getting at is when you like clearly like we don't believe it was a mega ritual, but through the lens of that, all of these things are intricate details to make the ritual successful.
Yeah. Yeah.
The thing with the book that sucks, though, is the book doesn't really tell you what they're trying to accomplish with the ritual. It's just that
Pointing out that it is a ritual. Yes.
Yeah. So I know my kind of goal with us doing this was to kind of try to pinpoint, well, let's take away all the satanic stuff. Let's take away the ritualistic elements with what happened, the tragedy of 9/11, what was trying to be accomplished kind of esoterically speaking. And that is, no surprise, to keep us in some sort of forever war. That is what our country does best. Going to countries, destabilizing them, making them indebted to us, taking their resources for whatever reason. And 9/11 is the perfect event because we want retribution.
And we don't care. We turned off the energy behind just go and get them and make them pay. People don't know the difference between Iraq and Afghanistan. I mean, and most people still think like the invasion of Iraq had something to do with 9/11. And they don't know these things. They don't care. They just wanted paid back because it was such an emotional trigger.
Shock to the system.
Yeah.
A shock to the very like psychic elements that kind of bind all Americans as a unified whole. Disrupted it. So this is the section we're going to now. We've went over a bunch of the elements that make it, a quote, a mega ritual. Oh, the one thing I forgot to bring up was if in a ritual you have like a congregation, literally with this, the whole world was the congregation. You had people watching.
They were channeling into it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not just like you have a few hundred people inside of a church listening to a priest. You have the whole world watching these towers fall and watching the destruction. And it goes on every day, 24/7 hours a day on all the news stations. So it is constantly being reinforced. Look what happened. Look what happened. Look what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Its intention was discovered. That's the key.
So this next part is more about what does 9/11 mean? And one thing I thought was interesting is that with Crowley, he was always flipping things on their head. So he was creating ritual, but making the inverse of the ritual because he wanted to invoke bad things because he's a cool guy. He's a bad guy. He's a bad boy. So 9/11, 911. 911 means help. You're calling for the cops to come, for an ambulance to come to save you. 9-11 becomes the inverse. It's the terror before you call for help. So we already kind of see, like, esoterically speaking, Crowley's kind of influence even on that. So yeah, 9/11 is all about terror and how this like terror kind of washed over all of America. Another element of the book that I thought was interesting was what do the towers represent? So we have these two huge towers in New York City. America is known for New York. It's the area that the immigrants came into. We have a Statue of Liberty. So if you're flying into New York, you're seeing like one of the biggest cities in the world, but you're also seeing these huge towers, monumentally huge. And what do these towers represent? I forgot how many businesses. It was like 400 and something.
Tons.
Like, yeah.
Tons and tons.
So you have like these pillars of Western American capitalism right as you enter the quote, the freest country in the world. And the book references the Pillars of Hermes, also called like Boaz and Jachin. These are images you see in a lot of occult iconography within the tarot, within Freemasonry, which were these two pillars of copper that were located outside of Solomon's temple, King Solomon's temple, the first temple built by the Jews. These decorative ornaments, you know, and the World Trade Center was essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
It was a decorative ornament to kind of showcase to the rest of the world, much like the Jews wanted to showcase to, I guess, other people, like the majesty of the temple itself. And America is the temple. Mm-hmm. We know that the terrorists, they hate us, folks. They hate Western society. I don't blame them. It's degenerate. Our culture sucks.
We fucked up a lot of shit for them though too. So
yeah, true. Yeah, we got our dues.
Yeah.
You know, they've like Osama bin Laden, whatever. They were talking like they've said like, oh yeah, fuck American capitalism. This shit's cringe, which is why they've clearly specifically targeted the Pentagon. Supposedly,
yeah,
the Pentagon,
financial places.
Yeah, it's definitely like they owned us, man. It's a pretty big own.
Yeah,
to be like, yeah, we're gonna fly 2 huge planes through the biggest buildings that represent the kind of American fundamentals in some way. So yeah, we have 9/11 has now changed. You know, whenever we hear 9/11, we think of the events of that day. The World Trade Center, like if you look at any old media and see the World Trade Center, it's kind of an odd feeling because they've not been there. They're not going to rebuild them, you know?
Yeah.
I think, like, was it Spider-Man that had like the poster had that? Mm-hmm. And you got to think like, so if these things represent American capitalism, this is directly from the book, what I'm about to reference, but the idea of the Statue of Liberty overlooking the fall of the towers.
Yep.
And what does in the book, they say the Statue of Liberty, being that it's a woman holding a flame, represents like Satan.
Lucifer. Yeah.
Yeah.
The bringer of light, bearer of light. Yeah.
Yeah. If you go through a bunch of different mythology, somebody holding light to give it to humanity to free them is seen in like Greek mythology. It's seen with Satan being the light bringer. The only lame thing about the book is that the author doesn't think that's cool.
Yeah, no, yeah.
He's Satan is pretty fucking cool, dude. Like, wanted to save us.
Yeah, knowledge is definitely cool. I think that the way he ties into it is what's really neat because there has to be like this general oversight of the entire ritual, like to kind of bring it all together, whatever deity could be invoked, but there's like a bigger witness to all of it. And that's what he equated to the Statue of Liberty, that it was put there as kind of like a bad joke almost. Yeah. I don't know if that's the right way to say it.
I forgot exactly how he says it in the book, but this goes back to what we've been saying. So we have like the Statue of Liberty. What does it represent? In a lot of ways, it's the flip side of what the towers represent.
Yeah, no,
it's the liberty that you can come here, you can be what you want. We all know that's not true. You can work hard and rise up through the ranks. We know that's not true. You know, you can find the American dream, which doesn't exist anymore. It's done. You have the American dream, liberty, overlooking the destruction of Western capitalism and the towers falling. The one thing I kept thinking when I was doing research on Solomon's temple was, King Solomon was kind of an asshole. He had slaves build his temple. He said, yeah, I did it. I'm the shit. The towers get destroyed by the Babylonians. When they're rebuilt, They are built by the Jewish people, not by slave labor. It's like a kind of communion of love to build their new place of worship. So who knows if within our lifetime we'll see something similar to the towers built again, but isn't built on the back of Western capitalism.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to see it. We would love to see it.
That's the biggest takeaway. Yeah. On like a hopeful point of view.
Actually, I should have saved that for the end, but I feel like it'd be kind of weird well, especially with what we're going to segue into next.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't really get hopeful after that.
Yeah. There's,
Yeah, I think that was pretty interesting, if you want to go over that
yeah.
real quick.
So the famous picture of the guy falling out of the tower, it's pretty iconic. Or he was jumping out, sorry, but his legs were like crossed at like kind of like a number 4, where like his he was bent at the knee on one and the other one was straight, but he was falling head first, which coincidentally is the exact same symbol on the Hanged Man tarot card. And that was a key thing that he was one of the sacrifices that was made.
And then you got to think about, I don't know if you reference it, but do you know what the Hanged Man card means?
I don't think it's in the quote. So yeah. Go ahead.
So the Hanged Man card, once again, this is probably confirmation bias. Like I want all of this to tie back together. The Hanged Man means that you're upside down. You're looking at a situation from a different point of view. So it's almost like the universe being like, you guys are going to want retribution. You're going to want to go to war. Look at this a different way. Look at this as a fresh way to restart the country from going into turmoil. Mm-hmm. Now we've only seen like don't get me wrong, the economy goes back up after that last recession, whatever, but like everything's only getting worse.
Oh,
it's only been getting, everything stays the same, but
turning
gets worse.
Point that we are not going to come back from in so many different ways.
Yeah, so you have this iconic image of a dude falling, looking like the Hangman. The photos are eerily similar. If you looked at any Hangman
side by side, it's exact.
It's really
eerie.
peculiar.
But from the book, in the mass ritual, we encountered various tarot cards that were brought to life or otherwise incorporated into the script: the Tower, the Devil, the Star, etc. We'll add one more to the list because the Falling Man is the 12th card in the tarot. The Hangman depicted in 3 dimensions for all the world to see, fortuitously captured on film for posterity.
I love tarot. I don't know a ton about it, but the kind of big, like the major arcana cards I know a lot about. And it is funny how with an event like 9/11, you can just throw a million tarot cards and you're going to somehow find their meaning.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, it makes sense because tarot is supposed to represent the kind of like each step that you take throughout life and what you learn, like lessons learned. Mm-hmm. But I mean, like the Tower, one of the most iconic, people that don't even understand tarot know what the Tower represents, because it's like that. The joke is if you get the Tower card, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do a reading, and every time you pull a card out, it's the Tower. The Tower is like a disruption. It is like something fundamentally changing,
like
right
halting
away.
Everything.
Yeah, that halts any progress or whatever, because you have to adjust to it. I have a funny side story. Early in 2019, before I quit my last job, I was getting really into tarot. Like I was reading cards every day to try to get into it and understand them. I was really worried about my job. Things were really stressful. So I was going to I'm going to pull 3 cards. And the first 3 cards I pull are like Death, the Tower, and something else. Which
nice.
Death never means actual death. It means
a change.
A change. Like
yeah.
you're dying and becoming something new. And I was like fucking anxious as hell, because I'm like, oh fuck, like I'm gonna lose my job. I was like, well, let me clarify, and then I get like 3 more cards that only clarify even more. Yeah. Like you're gonna lose, like if you're looking at past, present, future with like a 3-card setup. The second group I got was like loss of money. I think it's like the 5 of Cups It's one of the cup cards where it basically means don't cry over spilled milk. It's like a dude where he's like looking at 2 cups on the ground and he's sad, but there's 3 full cups behind him.
Yeah.
So I got that one for
that's eerie.
Yeah, it was really, that's the thing with tarot. You can literally find out whatever you want. Like it's all a psychological game. I love it. I think it's
it
fun.
makes you realize things you don't consciously think about, or finding comfort in, like, that plants the seed in your head that you may be changing jobs, and it adds comfort. Like that's okay. Like if it triggers that.
Or if I do, I'm so anxious that it's hard for me to really take anything from the tarot. But in that case, if I wouldn't have been anxious, I should have taken from it. You're gonna have to probably quit your job. Don't cry over spilled milk.
It'll be fine,
because this job wasn't going to go anywhere anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, tarot's awesome. We now know that the towers falling is this kind of visual metaphor for the fall of Western capitalism, how the system in which we exist is completely unsustainable. What 9/11 means within the public psyche. You, whether you like it or not, are taking part in the Megaritual all the time, because 9/11 has never left. Clearly, it's not terrorists anymore. People are afraid of Antifa or BLM supporters, whatever. But you're taking part in the Megaritual all the time, because 9/11 is referenced all the time as a way to keep it within the public consciousness so that we always believe the atrocities America commits is justified. What is that? It's what we'd like to call psychological warfare. There's some really great quotes that are said in the beginning of the book that I fucking thought was awesome. So I think psychological warfare is really interesting, because you can break 1,000,000 bones, but you can still think. You might be traumatized, but if somebody fucks with your brain,
there's some going even to the military divisions of psyops is pretty scary shit. It fucks with you. It fucks with you really good.
Knowing what the army is capable of.
Yeah.
With going into other countries and fucking with their
just
brains.
Propaganda, subtle little things that just build up in your mind, and
it's creepy. That Psy Warrior site I sent you is
that's
fascinating.
The best.
But the fact that it's like you guys took part. Psy Warrior is a website run by some psychological warfare dudes for the American military. It's really cool, but it's also fucked up, because they know a lot about and took part in developing psychological warfare techniques during Desert Storm.
Oh yeah, very recently. They have entire divisions of the military set up just for this, just to do whatever they want to change public mind in the area or in the country they want. They drop letters to enemy soldiers and fuck with them and all kinds of shit. It's wild.
We have some episode ideas. We'll go more into that. So before we dive into this next section, I wanted to start it off with this quote that's in the book. That is a pretty famous quote, because I was able to find it on a bunch of other articles. And it's from the Nuremberg trials, from a Nazi named Goering, where he talks about the Nazis, how they psychologically kind of got the German people to back them. Mm-hmm. He says, "Of course, people don't want war, but after all, it's the leaders of the country who determine the policy, and it's always a simple matter to drag the people along, whether it's a democracy, a fascist dictatorship, a parliament, or a communist dictatorship. Voice or no voice, the people can always be brought to the bidding of the leaders. That is easy. All you have to do is tell them that they are being attacked and denounce the pacifists for lack of patriotism and exposing the country to greater danger." Which is weird, because we're kind of seeing it now.
Well, nothing has changed. Not one damn thing has changed.
I hate when libs do that thing where it's cringy when you constantly hear Trump compared to Hitler or some sort of Nazi character. But man, just watching over the past 2 months how I'm like, that's what he's doing.
He's leveling up.
Portland's too weak because they're not taking care of the protests or the anarchists.
They're anti-Americans, and they have their liberal propaganda teachings in college and blah, blah, blah.
So that's what the Germans did. But this is like psychological warfare, especially on the American people, is nothing new. We've seen it referenced in movies. Think of They Live. You put on the glasses and you see how you're being marketed to on every level through the marketing of, Twinkies to how
social media.
Social media.
Social media is the big one. It can politically influence you. The way a headline is worded, it's all a part of a psyop. It's all completely psychologically manipulative.
The world is a psyop.
It is. Existence is. Living with other people.
Maybe it's capitalism as a psyop.
Yeah, that's true.
So let's give like a little This is also from the book. It's a quote from a guy named Gonzalez who wrote, his last name's Gonzalez, who wrote a book called Psychological Warfare in the New World Order. It's from about the late 70s or early 80s. And he says of psychological warfare, it is a secret, insidious type of war whose main battleground is the people's mind. Main battleground is the people's minds. Its main weapons are propaganda and mass brainwashing, mostly by using disinformation, deception, and lies in a large scale not used against people of a nation since the end of Nazi Germany. Though important, those elements are just a part of a series of carefully planned and executed long and short-term psychological warfare operations. So yeah, it's a psychological war. And in some ways, to convince the American people that we needed to go to war, once again, we already said it was easy. You have a nation disrupted, emotionally weak, in the face of a tragedy. It was easy to convince the American people, like, yeah, we need to go over there and kill over 500,000 women and children.
Civilians. Yeah.
It was easy.
Non-combatants. Yeah, and the Patriot Act too. That's a big thing that like all of this could be equated to kind of summoning the loss of privacy, individual rights, all of it kind of ties in. But the Patriot Act itself is psychologically manipulative, obviously, just in the title. But it was drafted very quickly. They didn't even fucking read it, and they passed it. They didn't care. We were mad. We were pissed off. And
it was the perfect time in the history of America to do what they did.
Yeah, that's what you would need to ever pull that off.
Which is why, in a lot of ways, I understand why 9/11 truthers exist. Because you see what happened afterwards, and, America, it's not like America's not known for going over to countries for no real reason.
Yeah.
It's a common trait. But if we wanted oil, if we wanted to go over there and disrupt their systems to get more oil, I totally get where the 9/11 truther mindset comes from. The more I thought about it, the more I'm like, it's hard for me to say one way or another if it was like done by the Bush administration, but in a lot of ways they are to blame. They had
directly.
It just kind of shows like how weak the people that control our country are. That they could have. I know that accidents happen. There have been planes that have been hijacked in the past before, but
there's too many coincidences. Do you want to hear my theory real quick?
Yeah, go into it.
So at the end of the 90s, now there were a lot of people famously renowned that came out and said, the internet's stupid, the internet's a fad, it's never going to take off. Well, there was a big .com bubble in the stock market where all the Google, Yahoo, all these companies were coming up. It was a whole new territory. Well, this is just my opinion. I think that the government knew the internet was catching on. The .com bubble pops, intentionally manipulated by the federal government, because they needed to put a hold on technology reaching the level that it obviously would without provisions in place to properly be able to monitor, inspect it, search it for whatever keywords, sayings, whatever. Personal data needs to be forfeited. So I think that the .com bubble was burst kind of intentionally. They let it happen. And they kind of just opened the door for an event to take place so we could put these measures in place before the technological revolution shortly ensued after. Because then technology obviously has gone through the roof. The internet's quadrupled, whatever size or whatever, it's different.
Yeah, when 9/11 happened, it was still like everybody had dial-up.
Yeah,
There
it
was
was
no
right in
hot-
the peak.
Yeah.
And the only thing that makes sense is that, maybe the Bushes, when people say like Bush did 9/11, I think like half of them mean like they actually just let it happen. And I think the nefarious reason of obviously oil and all these different getting back at Saddam and the Bushes and all of this shit. But at the same time, I think they needed to be able to pass something that would infringe the rights of every American before this technology took off.
But just remember, he's a nice old man that likes to paint.
Yes, paint cats and little flowers and God. He
he
should
fucking
be in prison.
sucks.
Yeah, he should be in prison.
So yeah, I mean, any war America has went into or any conflict, there has to be something done to convince the American people that it's justified or it needs to happen or we need to intervene.
Freedom fries, France, all of that shit. Like,
dude, I forgot the culture war shit during that period of time was so dumb.
The terrorist playing cards. Did you have like my parents had them?
Oh God, no!
Yeah,
I didn't
it was
know
just
it
a deck
thing.
of cards with every wanted terrorist on it. That's what people did. Like it was just these little things popping up to get in your mind that these people are inherently evil, no matter what. If they have a turban and a beard,
or if they even did it.
yeah,
You know?
yeah, they're nowhere near involved, and that's what it was. And France was behind us for a short time, and then they kind of backed out and was like, yeah, guys, this is kind of fucked up. I don't know if I want to be involved. And then all of a
This seems
sudden
a little
it's like
unjust, guys.
yeah,
I
I don't think this is the right move. And then now it's like, oh God, boycott France. They're traitors, freedom fries all the way. It's these little things that just keep like in the back of your mind, like plant themselves to never like dissent from the view that they want you to. And that's what a PSYOP does. That's what its whole purpose is.
Yeah. Yeah. Like in this one paper I found, they reference how even Mickey Mouse was conscripted for America's total war effort along the minds of the American youth. Following the war, Americans were heavily propagandized to accept the Cold War and the need for maintaining a permanent army, navy, and air force as a way to build up of a nuclear weapons arsenal. So that was in reference to World War II. And you can find 1 million Disney cartoons made during World War II that are weird. Like I know that the army didn't want American soldiers sleeping with foreign women, so they'd make all these cartoons. Like when one cartoon, like Donald Duck gets like chlamydia.
Yeah, some kind of STD.
So yeah, this shit like there's always, especially with like America being a capitalist country, to propagandize people is to use these kind of like these symbols that are ingrained very deeply within like the American kind of consciousness. So using Disney cartoons, using whatever icon from a product that you can think of
that you think of as
push
like,
that effort.
Yeah, like you think of them as like truth. Like that's an American thing that's just like true no matter what it is trying to symbolize. You don't really question it.
Like if Mickey Mouse is saying, hey, it's the war in Germany, whatever, World War II needs to happen. Well, like Mickey Mouse, the Brawny Man, Mr. Clean, any of these icons that have been around forever, they're just American gods.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of them are mostly like Mickey Mouse would be like an actual god, whereas like other things might be demigods or whatever. But that's what our country's sadly is founded on. So these things get driven in.
Have I ever told you about my football PSYOP theory? I think I read this online somewhere. I didn't come up with this. I wish I did. But football being the American pastime sport, the all-American thing, was pushed to be the all-American thing to keep high school students in physical shape during the Cold War in case we had to go fight Russia. That's some shit.
Interesting.
That's a fucking that's a good PSYOP. Holy fuck.
Yeah, think of it's so fucked. It's all fucked.
But shit like that, it's little things that you think that's like an American thing. It's It's planned. It's not a conspiracy. It's not like this crazy Alex Jones shit.
All those things that are part of American culture are literally just there as a way to, like, I mean, I hate to say it because it sounds like an Alex Jones thing, but yeah, but to keep us in line.
Yeah.
To make sure
that's
that
exactly
we're
it.
ready if we have to pick up a gun and go over the border and, you know, murder a bunch of women and children. for Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, for Mickey Mouse.
The honor of the brawny man, you know, like...
I'm trying to think of another good one, but...
I know, for some reason, it's like we're inundated every day with a million different...
Symbols
that I don't know why Brawny Man and Mr. Clean were the ones that came to my mind, but you know there's a million others. The Charmin Bears.
Yeah, Ronald McDonald, obviously.
Mickey Mouse and Ronald McDonald, they are like the yin and the yang within like they're easily like American Baphomet is like Mickey Mouse's head, but with like Ronald McDonald's chest. The phallic.
Grimace's like bottom torso.
Yeah, it's just like a fucking amalgamation of all those things.
And we all worship it.
Did you ever see you probably didn't, that anime Full Metal Alchemist?
No, I've heard of it, but
so like pretty early on in the show, there's like an episode where they use alchemy to like try to combine things together, and this like dad fucked up with his alchemic practice and like combined his like daughter and his dog together. It's a pretty fucking dark show. Yeah. But that's essentially what Mickey Mouse Ronald McDonald is. You just like put him into like that the circle of salt, do your spell, and they come out as like some screeching eldritch horror, you know. Yeah, so since 9/11, we've been, as this quote says, since 9/11, Americans have been bathed in psychological warfare on Islamic terrorism, despite the fact that only a handful of incidents in the West can be attributed to radical Islamists. What is generally not appreciated by America's leadership about this kind of prolonged use of propaganda on the American public is that it exposes the rationale for the longest war in American history in Afghanistan as flimsy and unconvincing, and completely sidesteps the outright lies and deceptions used to justify the 2003 invasion and occupation of Iraq. I thought that was a pretty good quote, and I mean, it's all true.
Yeah.
But so we know that our government is manipulating our brains.
They got to push the country music button, come out with a patriotic anthem.
Yeah,
drink your beer, drink your Bud Light, and, you know, go see whoever the fuck, Kitty Chesney or whoever the fuck sings that shit. And that's America, like, in your mind. That's already, like, that's the American way. These are American people. This is just how it is. It's that whole, like, country music personification of patriotism is one of the biggest. Obviously, it's unbelievable, especially hearing songs from that time. It's unreal.
Country music has been used. I mean, because if you look at like old country music, I think you might. I don't know if you sent me that TikTok, but it was about like I keep seeing stuff about how like country music initially was made by coal miners and people like workers, labor movement music. But I think it was like the 1950s maybe is when Republican conservatives started to use it and twist the narrative that country music is for the white working class.
Yes.
And like
and
that's
Christians and nationalists and
it's been like that ever since.
Yep.
Once again, a psyop.
Yep.
It's all fucking psyop. But who's in charge of the psyop? Because government doesn't say anything. And this brings us to the final section of 9/11 as a Megaritual. The architects of the war, the architects of every individual thing that happens within society that is implanted into our brains to propel us forward as beings that are not autonomous. And that is the Skull and Bones fraternity of Yale. It's Yale, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
I was like kept thinking Harvard for some reason.
And, you know, as I was researching this, I've never been like crazy into like Skull and Bones and shit. It always seems like Illuminati.
I didn't know anything about it.
I knew that it was like a club. I always knew George was affiliated, maybe a few other people. But going through this shit is pretty eerie because there are a lot of very, very prominent people who went on to do great things. Not great things, but become iconic in some way. But what's interesting is that it just goes to show you that these families that have all of this wealth and Yale and these private colleges, you just send, it's kind of like Trump. Like, you just kind of send your kid there. They kind of like network and mingle with other con artists and come up with ways to just fuck people out of money. That's all they do. Like, they don't you don't have to do tests and grading. It's like, no, just go meet the secret society and do like these fucking weird ass rituals, and you'll end up being president or the secretary of defense or some shit. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty eerie to see the big names on these, but there's a little summary here I'll read. Skull and Bones, also known as the Order 322, or the Brotherhood of Death, is an undergraduate senior secret student society at Yale University in New Haven, Connecticut. The oldest senior class society at the university, Skull and Bones has become a cultural institution known for its powerful alumni and various conspiracy theories. It's one of the big three societies at Yale, the other two being Scroll and Key and Wolf's Head Society, neither of which I'd heard of prior to this either.
Yeah, none of it.
Yeah. The Order of Skull and Bones is the elite of the elite, the Yale secret societies at any given time. Some 600 members of the order are probably alive. Skull and Bones, Yale, other secret societies serve as recruiting grounds to the highest level of government, intelligence, law, and finance. Historically, operations of the order have concentrated on society, how to change society in a specific manner towards a specific goal, a new world order. Sutton wrote in the early 1980s. This will be a planned order with heavily restricted individual freedom, without constitutional protection, without national boundaries or cultural distinction. And there are two, like, there was a website that I found about this guy who was somehow involved with going to one of their like ritual events or something. And he gives like this huge long description of what happened, like how he got there, but like he walked in on this whole ritual. It's fucking wild.
Sounds like something out of like a Simpsons episode.
Yeah, no, it
Homer goes to the Skull and Bones initiation.
Matt Groening, he's another one, man. That's some weird shit. I think he was on Jeffrey Epstein's flight log too.
Who was?
I think Matt Groening.
Oh yeah, because they, if I remember correctly, he had his like feet massaged or something.
Yeah, something weird. It was something with feet.
He would be a foot freak.
Yeah.
I can totally see it. So yeah, Skull and Bones is a fraternity at Yale known for hosting the elites of the elites, the people that kind of are situated in all forms of society, from the government to the arts, the people that make our laws, the people that enforce our laws.
And this goes back to the 1800s too.
Yeah.
Like it goes back to...
This is why conspiracy theorists exist.
Yeah, exactly.
When you have these societies of elite individuals, these like private societies and clubs of elite individuals that are all tied to the very tip top of society, it makes you start to think, well, what the fuck?
It really
it's all been planned from the beginning.
Yeah, it really does make you think, because all of these prominent members being tied back to one university that only wealthy people can get into to begin with. It's obviously a fucking club, but it's this way to continue this club and make sure that they can be put in place, or see how they can all work together and fulfill whatever needs, and they'll kind of pop up back and forth. John Kerry was in it, I think.
John Kerry was, yep.
John Kerry, so like...
It was when it was him versus Bush. That was the Battle of the Bonesmen.
Yeah. And like it's always this back and forth stuff. Like they're all friends. They're all together from this one source, which just shows you it's not like a partisan political thing. It's like they're just in this elite group.
It's a class war.
Yeah,
it's plain and simple.
Yep.
And like when you get initiated into the Skull and Bones thing, as we mentioned before, there's a weird, I don't know what it is with, I love occult shit. I think occult ritual magic is dope. I've done my own chaos magic rituals. Like I said before, I'm into tarot cards. But there is something unsettling about really weird rich people, because rich people are already by the fact of being weird, being rich, weird. Money fucks your brain up. So you have these rich people doing weird occult-like rituals to be initiated into a secret order. I didn't really read too much about the rituals, but it seems like they're pretty notoriously like
It's pretty dark.
Yeah, you're supposed to die and be reborn.
Yeah.
So a fucking course. Oh yeah, this quote right here. "It is like a black mass," he said, "not unlike some Masonic ceremonies, and involves a compromising of individual dignity and thereby ensures the bonesman's loyalty to his society. This loyalty is fiercely maintained. Not one of the 2,289 initiated members of the society has ever spoken of his involvement." There you go. And so we're talking about like all the different people involved with Skull and Bones, or just Yale in general. Because Yale is somehow this like breeding ground for people that have went on to control American policy, entertainment, everything. And we know that Bush was there. We know Kerry was there. But we made a short list of some other weird figures.
Yeah, this one I didn't know. Harry Stimson. He was the Governor General of the Philippines, the U.S. Secretary of War, and the U.S. Secretary of State. He oversaw the Manhattan Project as well.
Yep.
Fuck.
That's why, like, when I was going through, like, you can find a whole list of Skull and Bones members on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And I was going through, and that one just, like, popped out, and I was like, oh, it's so fucking weird.
Yep, there it is.
I think the Vietnam War is fascinating. And one of the names I found was McGeorge Bundy, who was the National Security Advisor during Vietnam. So essentially the guy that was tasked... I think I fucked these notes up. Yeah, McGeorge Bundy was the dude that was tasked with convincing the American people that we need to be over in Vietnam.
Yeah.
There was like one quote from somebody that worked with him when he died, like after he died, that was like, the term best and brightest was made for this man. He was like insanely smart, insanely charismatic. Oh yeah, another dude from Vietnam, Barry Zorthian, who was the press officer in Saigon for 4.5 years. Another person that was there to convince the populace, like, yo, it's important that we're over here.
Yeah, and we're winning.
People.
We're winning right now. Don't worry about
We're
a
not
thing.
getting our asses kicked.
Yeah.
It's not a complete clusterfuck.
Yeah, we need
of a
another
battle.
100,000 guys just because, not because they're dead. Just
We're
because.
doing so good. We just want to bring more people to come over.
Yeah, rally support. Give our guys a break. And of course, most notably, George H.W. Bush. He was the 41st president, obviously, 11th director of the Central Intelligence Agency. His son, he was the son of Prescott Bush, father of George W. Bush. His Skull and Bones nickname was Magog?
I'm going to look up
Or
that
Mad
name.
Dog?
It's Magog.
Oh, Magog,
But I'm
okay.
pretty sure Magog is like the name of like a...
A deity?
Yeah.
It sounds like it.
Magog is the second of the 7 sons of Japheth mentioned in the Table of Nations in Genesis 10.
Huh.
His name is often associated with apocalyptic traditions.
Nice.
Let's see.
That's very suiting.
God, rich people are fucking weird, dude. Just like be normal. Get a normal nickname like Scooter. Not some fucking... Okay, I'm not reading this Wikipedia page. But yeah, it was Magog.
Yeah. There was another quote I read too about Yale coming out and saying like Skull and Bones like actually runs the school or some shit. It was pretty interesting.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean it's well, here, let's just get into it. The list of Yale graduates associated with the Iraq War. Just the Iraq War. Old George W., of course. Dick Cheney, Attorney General John Ashcroft, Samuel P. Huntington. He was the author of the article The Clash of Civilizations and the Remaking of World Order, published by the CFR Journal Foreign Affairs, summer of 1993. James Woosley, he was the former CIA director and leading advocate for the War on Terror. New York Governor George Pataki initiated the privatization of the World Trade Center, which was leased to Larry Silverstein and the Israeli-Australian Frank Lowy. Lowy? Either way.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
They're all freaks. So.
Senator Joseph Lieberman, a graduate of Yale and its law school and a key member of the closed congressional inquiry into the events of 9/11. Stephen Allen Schwartzman, CEO and president of Blackstone Group, oh God, which purchased the mortgage on World Trade Center 7, controlled by Larry Silverstein. On October 17th, 2000, Silverstein's 47-story building mysteriously self-demolished at 5:25 p.m. on 9/11. Schwartzman's partner and co-founder of Blackstone Group is Peter G. Peterson, chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York and the Council on Foreign Affairs. Blackstone Group has had a strategic alliance with Kissinger McLarty Associates. Henry Kissinger was Bush's first choice to chair the 9/11 investigation. Fuck.
He's
He's
actually
actually
like a circle of fucking freaks.
Yeah, dude, he's on to something. Like, this is...
Oh my God.
It really... I'm not into this Illuminati Alex Jones shit. Seriously, I've never been into it.
It's like we said, though, there's a grain of truth to all the conspiracy theories.
And that's what keeps them going. It's just these two fucking weird of coincidences that they all just like knew each other and they came from the elite families. What are
It's
the
just
odds?
that I wish so bad that I could have a sense of patriotism, that I was into nationalism, that I could look at this country and be like, I'm proud to be here. I want to spend the rest of my life here. But the game has been rigged from the beginning.
Yeah.
None of us have ever stood a chance.
Yeah.
On occasion,
It's made that way.
sometimes you get people that can break the code, that get out of the matrix and they make a living doing what they want to do. A lot of times that's luck. But
Mostly luck.
it's mostly luck. But if you're born into wealth, you're born into a family that has connections, you're just going to make it. That's just how it is.
What I like to think about, though, too, is how the school curriculum was formed by the Rothschilds and all of these very rich families. Our entire schooling system is just made to take a child to be a blank basic computer to form into some sort of
into a good little worker.
Yes, into an economy-driven workforce. That's all school is. It's not about learning and enriching your passions in art and history, because those programs are never funded. It's never meant to truly accelerate somebody's natural abilities. It's to wipe you of those through harsh discipline. Reward you for being good, discipline you for being bad.
So hopefully by the time you graduate high school, you can go and work 40 hours a week.
Yeah,
making
and pay your
money.
taxes and don't fucking ask any questions.
Yeah.
That's it.
The machine gods of capital, Ronald McDonald and Mickey Mouse, crave your energy and your blood.
Mm-hmm. And it was designed that way from the start. And it's a lot of people feel younger people how's America so fucked up? It's been fucked. It's never been right. There was never the good old days. It's always
It's just
been.
You're watching now. You're watching it happen in real time.
Yeah. Accelerated.
Because so many people fucking know that the system of our government, or not government, but our economy isn't really sustainable.
Yeah.
You're going to have people, especially with the global climate crisis happening in the next 30 years. People know that everybody's taking on way more debt than they can handle. And at some point, we're going to hit that threshold.
It can't last forever.
Yeah, there's some, I think it's only going to happen once the dinosaurs, both Republican and Democrats, die, and you have more people of color, younger people
All
going into these
inclusive.
offices going okay, no, we're changing this shit.
Yeah.
Sorry, rich people, you're getting taxed more because it's not our fault that these systems are set up that way. It's Skull and Bones. It's all these fucking people.
And remember too, who wrote the fucking tax codes? Rich people. That there's a reason why there's loopholes.
Where it's not going to fucking help them. Speaking of timely news, all the shit that just was said about Trump. not paying taxes for 10 years. The one time he does, he pays $750 in taxes. He paid more taxes overseas than he ever did here.
Yep.
So these people don't care about us. They don't care about
fucking care. And my big thing too is all the fucking libs that are like, oh no, I'm okay with paying taxes for this, that, and the other. It's just like, motherfucker, let's straighten the whole system out first before you just volunteer the middle class to be taxed again for the Green New Deal or some shit.
Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous. We shouldn't have to be taxed.
Yeah, like that's what the problem
a dude
is.
With $60 billion in liquid fucking assets, or $200 billion, however much Bezos has.
200, yeah.
200 fucking billion. Like, you don't need to tax the people that are making 35,000 and scraping by.
Right. But that's the thing with Democrats that they can't understand, where like I hate the fucking stereotypical right libertarian taxation is theft thing, but like in a way it is for the working class. But the problem is that like they kind of have it right. You can't tax your way out of whatever problem you have, because the taxes only go to the middle or to the working class. So like nothing is ever going to change. You can put a tax on whatever the fuck you want. It doesn't matter. The system is still rigged. The whole fucking thing is rigged. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The only fair way is a national flat sales tax. That's it. 30%, whatever. And that's it on anything you buy. Fuck income, fuck it all, because it doesn't work. We're being shown in real time none of this shit works. Our representative democracy doesn't work. Nothing. Not a damn thing is working right now. So
there we go. That's how we end the episode.
Yeah.
We don't end it with like the one day we'll build our own World Trade Center by the people for the people. It's just like, no, it's fucked, guys.
Yeah, we're seeing the ramifications of this Megaritual still showing its ugly head, and it's only downhill. Like I can't optimistically say in like a weird paradise view mentally, yeah, like building something, getting rid of the ridiculous capital state and what the World Trade Centers represented. We got a long way to go. Like we're just at the beginning.
I think the only thing I'm keeping in my head that makes me feel optimistic is that I really do believe at some point there will be a reckoning. It's not some bullshit civil war. Nothing like that. But just at some day, there will be enough people in office that are from our generation that grew up in shitty circumstances that start to hold the architects to account.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't happen, we're being led to a dystopia. We're being led to it, like, especially once the climate change shit in the next 30, 40 years really starts getting fucked up, is like if we don't start taxing these people that can easily be taxed and not affect their lives, how long do we sit here and just let it happen?
Yeah.
And see our material conditions kind of evaporate.
They're gone.
Crumble.
They're already gone before people don't even recognize it. Like, it's already here. We have people who can't fucking afford to pay rent, can't afford to fucking eat. The whole economy is a disaster, and nobody can even fucking acknowledge it. Still. They still can't.
It's the people that don't want to acknowledge it, or the people where that doesn't affect.
Yeah,
which are
that's exactly it.
Boomers that were able to get good union jobs and save up and have tons of property and do whatever.
Buy property when it was
their
cheap,
side businesses.
and it wasn't exploited by all the fucking entrepreneur real estate people. Like, that's the problem with the whole free market side, is like that ability to do that. It's been so populated by people just wanting to get rich. It ruins it for everybody. Used to be able to buy property cheap, buildings for cheap. It's all different. It's all changed, and it's all downhill because it can't last forever. I've said it plenty of times on the show. Like, the whole system is based on the fact that property only goes up in value. How fucking stupid is that? How fucking dumb of an idea is that? That no matter what, you can sell your house in 10 years, it'll keep up with the price of inflation, and you'll make money on it because inflation's rising, everything goes up. McDonald's is going to get rid of the dollar menu. Like, it's going to go to $2. Like, that's what happens in our system. It always has to keep going. More debt, more spending, more credit, more tax, whatever. It can't fucking work. We're seeing it. And 9/11 was the ritual that
ushered us into
pushed us over the hill.
Yep. So, I hope everybody enjoyed this first little foray into us actually researching something. 8 pages of notes.
Yeah.
That's not nearly as much as some other podcasts that have like 75 pages, but I think it's a good start.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, maybe next time we'll have more. Not that amount of notes matters. It's the content of the notes. Yeah. Follow us on all that social media. And thanks for listening.
Yep. See ya.